Hello, everybody. Welcome to Break the State podcast. This is episode number 7. As always, I'm your host, Dunk Limpman. And joining me today, we have Jay, the owner and founder of Anti-State Apparel. You can visit antistate.net for all of your Liberty-themed shirts, patches, stickers, hoodies, and more. And you can also find him over on Instagram at Anti-State. And speaking of Instagram, we also have the man best known for being an insufferable smartass in the comment section. And that is, of course, Ryan, the man behind Or Else What. That's at _or_else_what on Instagram. We had an excellent discussion talking about the Great Reset and the coming technocracy and much more. This has probably been one of my favorite episodes thus far, so I do hope you enjoy. But before we get into that, I just wanted to take a moment to say that if you enjoy what I'm doing with this podcast, I'd love it if you considered heading over to anchor.fm/breakthestate/support, where you can become a monthly contributor for as little as 99 cents per month. Again, that's Anchor, anchor.fm/breakthestate/support. Now let's get into the show. All right, this is Break the State podcast, episode number 7. As always, I'm your host, Dunk Limpman, and joining me back for their second and third appearances, respectively, are Jay, the owner and founder of Anti-State Apparel, and Ryan, the self-described insufferable smartass behind Or Else What on Instagram. Jay, Ryan, how's it going, guys?
Hey, what's up, bro? How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. How about you, Ryan?
I'm doing well.
Hell yeah, man. Good to hear it. So before we get started today, Jay, you just kind of made a little announcement to me right before we got on here. Can you fill us in on that?
Oh, yeah. I was letting you know that I had started getting Break the State merch together so that we could get some of that on antistate.net and start, letting people spread the word about what you're doing here and build some awareness for the podcast.
That is what's up. Super stoked about that. That's what's up, man. How big are the you had mentioned stickers? How big are the stickers that we're looking at right now?
I got two.
Nice.
I got a 2x2 square.
Okay.
And then I got a 3x3 square holographic.
Ooh, nice. All right.
It'll look good. It'll look really good.
Excellent.
Eye-catching flashiness there.
Mm-hmm. Little limited edition.
Awesome. Well, we'll get some links out there as soon as that is all ready to go. So the reason I wanted to get you guys on today, last time we talked, Jay, you had mentioned that your kind of forecast for the future, you saw us at some point, not too far down the line, living in some sort of technocracy.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's all this stuff going on with the Great Reset, this, as the New York Times is calling it, a baseless conspiracy theory. So wanted to kind of talk about that, the technocracy, the Great Reset, COVID, of course, and everything else that's kind of going on with the lockdowns and all of that. So I had come across this article from the New York Times that says the baseless Great Reset conspiracy theory rises again. It says a baseless conspiracy theory about the coronavirus has found new life as cases surge once again. On Monday morning, the phrase "Great Reset," and this is from a couple of weeks ago now, I think. It says on Monday morning, the phrase "the Great Reset" trended with nearly 80,000 tweets, with most of the posts coming from familiar far-right internet personalities. Of course, it's always the far right that has the conspiracy theories.
Yeah, there's those right-wing extremists that just want to be left alone. Yeah.
Let's see. The conspiracy alleges that a cabal of elites has long planned for the pandemic so they can use it to impose their global economic control on the masses. In some versions, the unfounded rumor, uh, in some versions of the unfounded rumor, excuse me, I'm a little bit retarded. It is only President Trump who is thwarting this plan and keeping the scheme at bay. So I love how I,
The hold on, are we talking about the orange game show host guy?
exactly. Yeah, I love how like right off the bat they say baseless, unfounded, and automatically start connecting it to the whole QAnon thing, which is a huge buzzword to just use as like that must be fake news. It must be coming from QAnon or what have you. So that's
You know
great.
what? I've got the same article up in front of me right now, and like it goes on to real briefly going into saying how like the Great Reset narrative first took root in like late May, and it's
Hmm.
talking about May 2020, and apparently whoever researched this Great Reset conspiracy doesn't realize that this is essentially just a rebranding of a conglomeration between Agenda 21 and Agenda 30 agendas
Hmm.
that have been put out by the United Nations that have been out there for a very long time. But it goes on to say when Prince Charles and Klaus Schwab, uh, the executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, announced plans to convene world leaders and discuss climate change, how to be rebuild an economy damaged by the pandemic. This was already slated. All of this stuff was already slated before the pandemic.
Well, yeah, they got together for the World Economic Forum. What in fall of 2019 was when they like first started talking about the Great Reset.
You know what? I'm not exactly sure when this first came up.
I don't know when
Let
that
me see.
phrase first came up.
I have this other article from Mises.org from Anthony P. Mueller. He says that the under the auspices of the World Economic Freedom, global policymakers are advocating for a great reset with the intent of creating a global technocracy. It is not by coincidence that on October 18, 2019, in New York, the WEF, the um, the World Economic Forum, participated in Event 201 at the high level pandemic exercise organized by John Hopkins Center for Health and Security. So I remember hearing about this Event 201, which is basically like a war game exercise for a pandemic that just so happened to take place in October of last year.
I'm
So
just
go
going to point
figure.
out that it's Johns Hopkins because the people that like that place get really picky about that. And that's
Oh.
going to be important later with something I'm going to bring up. So
Oh yeah, totally.
I want the people that believe in Johns Hopkins to make sure that they know that we have the utmost respect for the university as well. Sorry for interrupting. Please continue.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's just so basically, I just found this article from New York Times to just be hilarious. I think like you said before the show, Jay, that I think they really just threw this baseless Great Reset conspiracy theory rises again up as a title, and they don't really expect anybody to look into it any further than
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
That's you see that article come across on Facebook and you like the headline and you share it to oh, I really got you, my right-wing friend from high school or whatever, I really got you this time with this New York Times article.
But
So
what you go to find out when you go read the article is that the claim in the headline is what's actually baseless, and that there's plenty of supporting evidence of this. And even if you wanted to restrict yourself to mainstream media alone, um, and looking at just behavioral modification, for example, I mean there's USAID resources out there, article on wired.co for virtual prisons where they're talking about uh, restricting people's movement or abilities based off of like social credit and stuff like that. And I
mhm.
mean, from everything, like this isn't anything that is new in any way, shape, or form. Like this shouldn't be new information to anybody that has been around the community for a little while. They should be kind of familiar with some of this sustainability agenda that's come about. and it's all part of globalization. And I think that
Yeah.
that kind of comes back to, the assertion in that article that there's a belief that Trump is the only one thwarting this, from being. And the fact of the matter is if that guy was thwarting it, they would have lit the top down on the convertible like they did with JFK.
Right.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah,
That's a
I'm pretty sure
great
Trump
point.
was actually a guest at the World Economic Forum. I was looking up the guest list the other day, and I'm pretty sure that he is actually one of the guests there. So anybody that thinks that he's thwarting it, is definitely tripping a bit.
There's some secret societies that guy's not a member of. That's
Sure.
great. That's wonderful. You're not a member of Skull and Bones or whatever. But he's got some really, really dirty friends. And
Oh yeah.
just looking at his political career going back to 2000, when I would always love to mention he ran for president as a Democrat. Um,
Mhm.
Even if you go back to that point, like you look at the dogs that he's been in bed with, and this dude's got fleas. And I love this whole like patriotism, people want to fix the country and stuff like that. But putting your beliefs in a false messiah is going to let you down every single time. And that's really what the right had built this guy up to be, as some sort of savior.
Yeah.
There's no
And to
saving
go
this
like full
man.
tinfoil hat on it, not that like I can prove it, but he could have been controlled like opposition the entire time, like to
Hmm.
set up for what we're experiencing now. You know what I mean? The greatest way to like kind of unite people under one roof is to have them all hate the same thing. So if they put this
Right.
man in there, let him do the things they knew were going to be agitating to people so that they could turn the tide to hate everything that he stood for,
Hmm.
and they could decide what he stood for because they didn't really let him do anything for his entire presidency either. They were really calling the shots for the entire time. If you look back at the last 4 years, what has Trump really done? Not much. Not that really any president does, but he was stopped at every opportunity and kind of deflected and really made to look like this terrible person so that everybody, not everybody obviously, but a huge section of the country really was on this orange man bad frenzy that really sets the stage for a really big swing back in the other direction as
Yeah.
we're kind of looking at possibly facing now.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Um, I,
totally.
I I love that during this whole 4 years. I mean, we even got our own new, or not we, but in the United States, there's even a whole new Trump derangement syndrome, which is this whole new um, syndrome supposedly all caused by this one guy. But yeah, I mean that's a great point that like he definitely could be a controlled opposition type of character, and you've got like Alex Jones, all up on his meat every chance that he gets.
It's
So I
true.
don't know. Maybe he'll learn better after this go around, but we'll see. I don't have much hope in him anymore these days. But
No, I think we kind of mentioned previously that if that dude was everything that he said that he was, and he wasn't controlled opposition up to some point,
yeah,
that he would be having a lot rougher time in life than he is right now.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Yeah, William Cooper is always who I
Yeah,
think of.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, one thing that I haven't really heard a whole bunch of people talking about is how closely paralleled um, this Great Reset stuff is to the things that David Crowley was talking about in Gray State the Rise Rough Cut.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
That was a great documentary. I mean, as rough as it was, without being all edited and touched up, for a final release, that was a great documentary. That's definitely one that I still show a lot of people when trying to kind of show them, wake them up to our side, I guess you could say.
To what's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
a
there's
great
definitely.
piece. I wish that it was available clean without all the subs through it.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely been modified.
Yeah, it's a
And that's
tough one.
that's a
I
that's a
strongly recommend people not watch it like straight through in one sitting, especially if
mhm.
you're like a more sensitive person to subliminals and stuff like that. you'll digest the information, get a lot more out of it if you break it up into like two or three pieces, I would say. Because if you
Mm,
sit through it the whole time, you'll feel weird. Like even if the information in it is stuff that you're very comfortable with, you'll feel a strange kind of malaise come over you. At least I know I do when I watch
Abs-
it with the stuff that's embedded in there.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that like I had even kind of warned you about when I told you about it, because it was something that I was definitely concerned about
Hmm.
from when I had watched it. And that's a whole big interesting story from another time. But the
Yeah.
Reader's Digest version is at the time, I had some access to some data, and I heard that the in the wake of David Crowley's obvious murder, um,
mm,
that the documentary he was working on was going to be pushed out and released, and it was going to be released on a public FTP server at like 2 a.m. some ridiculous time, and I stayed up all night and got it started downloading, and the file size was different in the morning. My download didn't finish, and the file size was different, and I ended up with something different than what I had initially downloaded. And when I watched it the first time, I couldn't help but to notice a weird audio track laid in the background, and you can't really make out what it is, but the whole thing's just loaded down with subliminals. Have you watched it, Dal?
yeah, I never noticed any of that stuff really. I thought it was just something that it was just like uncut, like unfinished. Like I noticed where you can see where it says things like, insert title card here or what have you. But I guess I don't know. I guess I wasn't really up to speed on that.
uh, Go check it out when you get some time, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
go
Now that
go
you're
watch
aware
the
of it, you'll definitely notice.
yeah, go check out the version that's on YouTube, and
Mm,
turn your volume up. Actually skip to about 20-25 minutes into the video, and
okay.
then turn your volume up, and
Yeah.
I think you'll be kind of surprised with what you're hearing. I was.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the Gray State, the Rise, for anybody who wasn't following that we're talking about that documentary, and that's by
Yeah.
the filmmaker that was actually working on the Gray State film. Um, are they still doing anything with that? I know that the page still posts things from time to time on Facebook, but they seem to be like whoever's running that seems to be like a Trump supporter or something now. I don't know.
I I don't know that anybody would really want to continue working on that, man. I think that
Yeah.
to some people that were in the know, that message was kind of put out there loud and clear
Yeah.
Hmm.
as far as how that kind of stuff would be handled. As a matter of fact, like I've been on Instagram for a while, and like I know some people, and I've got some connections and stuff, and I knew people that had mutual connections with people that were working on that film and stuff like that. And I gotta tell you, people don't talk about it. If they had any type of connection or anything to it at all, even like people that I've known like 8-10 years,
Hmm.
people that I'm aligned with in views, or people that I have history with, like they don't want to talk about that stuff, man. And I think reasonably so in some
Yeah.
cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No doubt. And again, for anybody that's not aware, I think there's a documentary. Is it still on Netflix? I think it's called A Gray State. That kind of talks about how David supposedly killed himself and his family, but obviously we're probably all in the camp to agree that he did not do that.
Yeah, well, just looking at some of the details that have come out about it, like there's certainly been some conflicting information as
Hmm.
far as like the crime scene and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
the thing is that ultimately, I mean, really, you're talking about trusting the news media and or trusting police, and there's been plenty of instances in the past where people know when to keep their mouth shut and details disappear. And I mean, God forbid, you couldn't possibly imagine a police officer falsifying a police report, could you?
Oh God, no, that would never happen. No,
So,
absolutely not.
so there's a lot of questions surrounding that, and I know that that was one thing
Yeah.
that really kind of opened my eyes, was not necessarily like what happened to him, because like we've seen where that's happened before. in any type of movement counteracting
Yeah.
anything like that we've seen where somebody's either demonized and or just totally rubbed out, and we mentioned William Cooper earlier.
Yeah.
And
Gary Webb is another example.
We
dude,
can go super mainstream with it. I mean, the courts have ruled that MLK was killed and MLK was playing ball. So,
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
so it's
absolutely.
not really a stretch to believe that being taken out is like a thing that does not happen on a regular basis.
As a matter of fact, to even think that that's not a possibility is highly ignorant, because
Mm.
it would require you to not know. And Ryan, you brought up the civil rights case, pertaining to, or the civil case pertaining to the Martin Luther King Jr. assassination, and you're
Yeah,
absolutely right, bro. Like,
yeah, like
it's on record in their courts who had something to do with this.
yep,
Nobody
The
and
cares.
CIA, wasn't it? I think the
You
court wrote it was the CIA.
Did they pin it
I
down to a specific
I don't
agency,
know if they
or
I don't know if
Thought
they
they
did
did.
ever specifically name it as CIA, but I know that they did
Mm.
take credit as government, and that it was the government that I think it was the federal government that made the payout for the court proceedings.
Yeah.
wild, right?
Crazy
And
shit.
people don't want to look at that kind of stuff. But yeah, so
Yeah,
like,
it's still not something that we get taught in school. So
right, and the
that's probably
whole
Oh,
true.
the whole
that
Gray
would be
State
racist.
thing. Like, if you look at the way that that documentary is put together and the way that it's built, like, it makes it very clear what the plan
Mm.
is, and the agenda that's coming, and just the people that are in the documentary. I mean, dude, what we got: Ron Paul, Adam Kokesh, who else?
Hmm.
There's a ton of people in there, and
Mhm.
they're all kind of giving you. I mean, geez, these were red pills in what, 2014, and
Yeah.
kind of letting people know what was going on. And there's a there's a bunch of really good parts. There's always a Adam Kokesh quote that sticks out from the end, where he's talking about, and it's, yeah, a classic Adam line, that when you're growing up and you're taught don't hit and don't steal, it's not unless you have a badge and a gun. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that that's a lot of what we're seeing there. And there's a lot of really
Yeah.
good stuff in that. I would encourage anybody to kind of check that out and kind of stick to what Ryan had recommended as far as limiting your exposure to it. I definitely wouldn't watch it like right before bed or anything like that, or fall asleep watching it.
No,
Yeah, definitely
no,
something
yeah,
daytime
don't fall
watch.
asleep watching it. That would be terrible
Yeah.
to let your body
Yeah.
just absorb those
Oh yeah.
signals like
Yeah.
without
Talk,
conscious brain
talking
taking
about
in the
your
surface
defenses.
stuff. Yeah.
And anybody that's got any questions about subliminal messages, or anything like that, behavior modification, a lot of that stuff's been declassified, bro. We're no longer
Yeah.
debating whether or not that's something that's legit. They've already declassified it. They've already been working on it. They've already shown the
Yeah.
studies, where what they can achieve with it. So
Mhm.
anybody that's going, oh, our government wouldn't do that. No, you're just not educated about the last time our government did it and got caught.
And you're
Yeah.
too lazy to even type in DuckDuckGo instead of
Mm-hmm.
Google to be able to find the information that's very easily available as long as you don't use Google.
Right there in front of your face.
Yeah, I definitely recommend DuckDuckGo. I've been using that a lot more lately, especially after having watched. Have you guys actually seen The Social Dilemma? Either of you guys?
Mm-mm.
I have not
So,
watched it yet. I've been recommended it a couple times, but I have not gotten around to watching it yet.
as you guys might have noticed, and definitely some of the people listening might have noticed, I've not been spending a lot of time posting, and that documentary, I can say, is definitely one reason behind that. Besides the fact that I've just had a lot going on in the personal life, but I definitely recommend everybody give it a watch. Maybe if you guys do give it a watch, we can come back to that topic another time. But
Mhm.
I definitely recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Definitely, I'd check that out, bro.
Yeah.
So, Ryan, the last time that we were on together, we were talking about the uh, Black Mirror, that TV show on Netflix, and we're talking about the
Yep.
social credit system. And this is kind
Yep.
of going back to this technocracy. I was kind
Hmm.
of I was looking up, trying to dig in a little bit more about this, and I didn't really. I've heard things about China and China's social credit system, but I didn't realize how in depth it actually is.
Oh yeah.
And so I found this. This is an interesting thing from the visualcapitalist.com. I think everybody should check this out. Called "The Game of Life: Visualizing China's Social Credit System." And it basically just talks about how each citizen is assigned points and is constantly monitored to judge their behavior. Um, they can gain points by doing things like donating blood or money, engaging in charity work, praising the government on social media, or helping the poor. Or
Oh
they can
shit.
lose points. They can lose points by not visiting one's aging parents regularly, which, well, we can't do that shit now. Um, Cheating in online games, insincere apologies for crimes committed, or spreading rumors on the internet. And so some of the rewards it says here includes fast tracking a work promotion, priority status for children's school admissions, easier access to bank loans and consumer credit and tax breaks. And punishments include things like exclusion from booking flights or train tickets, ineligibility for certain jobs, restricted access to public services, and public shaming on TV and via social media. So if
Wow.
this isn't literally what we were just talking about a couple weeks
Yeah.
ago, I mean,
I mean, that's
I don't know
it.
what else is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's insane to think that like people are living that right now. That's wild.
Yeah, and this and you can go on to read more about it. So if anybody that wants to check it out, again, it's from the visualcapitalist.com, or it's actually just visualcapitalist.com, no the. But it just talks about how this is, it's only just begun really in the last couple of years, and it's not even near where they want it to be yet. So
Hmm.
so that's kind of the thing that we have to look forward to with this great reset. As this Klaus fellow has been talking about all these different transhumanism type of things and reading people's minds and all of this crazy shit. Have you guys looked into any of that by this Klaus Schwab fellow?
So I've been given a little bit of information about it in discussion, but as
Mhm.
far as like reading anything that's been specifically put out, no.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't had a chance to really look into like he has a book that's out about the pandemic and everything. But I just again, I mean, I find it hilarious that they're openly talking about these things. With all of these leaders from all over the world, and it's the same thing that they've been doing, with the Bilderberg Group and with these various other, the Club of Rome, going back, and all of these different groups and meetings, secret meetings that nobody else is allowed in, and talking about all these things going back for decades. And
Literally everything that Alex Jones spent like 14, 15 years trying to warn us was coming before he turned around, dropped his knees for cops. Yeah, I got you, bro.
right,
I
Yeah.
got you.
exactly.
I mean,
But it's baseless, though. It's
but
baseless.
this is baseless, totally baseless. Like
Unfounded rumors.
we have seen the rise of this police state that's just absolutely unparalleled,
Hmm.
Yep.
between a federal intelligence and alphabet agencies intelligence, and between federal uh, funding of local law enforcement with stuff like MRAPs and shit that I was riding around in Iraq. Um, between all of that, like, there's just this potential for the worst kind of abuse by people in power. And I think that people have been scared to this
Yeah.
point. I mean, in your lifetime, probably, well, you were born before OKC bombing, right?
I was born in '93.
Okay. So like right around that same time you had Waco, you had
Hmm.
OKC, you had all kinds of stuff going on, right? Where right wing beliefs, right wing extremists were kind of demonized in the media and by the Clinton administration.
Yeah.
And if you go back and you look at what some of these people were saying and some of these people were writing, like, bro, if you go back and read Kaczynski's manifesto, He straight
Yeah.
up freaking warned us about this shit back in the day. Like,
Yeah.
the Unabomber called it, bro.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
Everything
can
that the
condemn
world
what
that,
he did, but
yeah,
his
I don't
motives for what
support.
he was trying to stop are coming right in your face right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, the things that he saw coming to fruition, he was hell bent on going about stopping them his own way. And like, sure, like, whatever, the dude wasn't right in the head, but at the same time too, like, go back and read it. If you've never read it, go back and read it, and you're going to be like, wow, was he just talking about the social credit system? Holy crap.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah, I actually haven't read it. I've been hearing a lot of people talking about his works recently. So I'm definitely gonna go back and check that out for sure.
Well, dude, as Ryan would probably try and assure me at this point, you're probably on several watch lists already. One more
Oh
for reading, one, being on one more for reading the manifesto is probably not going to be an issue for you at this point.
oh yeah, yeah. I've definitely been. I was just making that joke the other day at our friendsgiving. I'm like, yeah, I've been on a watch list for the greater part of the last decade. I'm sure. So
Yeah.
Zero doubt.
yeah.
So it's we're seeing a lot of this stuff come to fruition now, and
Mhm.
the thing is like, the stage is set, and a lot of the stuff that's being put out by these how are they described, far right media pulpits in that article. um,
Far right conspiracy
so
theorists. Yeah.
a lot of the stuff that's being put out is, it really has its Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 stuff that's just been rebranded and relabeled, but just happens to conveniently match up with the Great Reset stuff that's being put out in the World Economic Forum. They're not doing themselves any justice. If you've caught any of their social engineering, I won't even call it commercials. If you've caught any of their social engineering that they've produced for the Great Reset,
Hmm.
bro, it's outright social engineering, trying to influence and affect the opinions of people and get people more accepting to this idea that, Trump, the game show host, did so poorly running this country that we just need to hit the reset button. And to a degree, they're not wrong. We do need to hit the reset button, but it's not in a fully centralized, governing body that they're talking about. And this was,
Right.
I remember you and I, we talked previously like about Zeitgeist and resource based economy.
Hmm.
Yeah, is the Great Reset just absolutely not a resource based economy? So
Right.
if you go and you go and you take a look at it, it's the parallels in technocracy are, I mean, overwhelming. So
Yeah.
you pretty much have these people that came up with this idea for a resource based economy and thought it was a great idea to make everybody free. And now, as that article, actually, as other articles state, that these are like the top capitalists in the world that are behind this stuff. But if you go and you look at the organizations that these people support, they're absolutely socialists, Fabian socialists in most instances.
Hmm.
And a lot of these guys, they're members of the same secret societies that we were talking about just a few minutes ago. So, you know, I think that some of this is going to be spun on, oh, look at what these capitalists are doing. Yeah, bro, these capitalists, yeah, yeah, they're implementing socialism. Yes, that's the problem. I get it. And they've got just such this great mass of wealth and control that they've amassed.
Hmm.
I mean, because it's not just corporations, man, and it's not just governments. We all know who wins every war, and we all know who wins every election, and it's the bankers. And that was
Yeah.
the thing that was consistent leading up to the election this year. Is I would just get one DM after the other, or one Q&A response after the other. Hey man, what do you think's going to happen with the election? What's your projection? Well, my projection is the bankers are going to win, because that's who
Hmm.
always freaking wins.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, pretty much going back for as long as I, can think of, as far as, I mean, not even just the United States history, but before that as well.
Well, and we had Eisenhower that warned us of the military-industrial complex and its rise to power,
Mhm.
and the inherent dangers in amassing that. But what we don't have Eisenhower around right now to scream about is the rise of the medical industrial complex. And
Yeah.
it's only a matter of time before we start to kind of see a fusion between that industry and others. Um, before we start seeing Department of Health issued, pistols or machine guns and buying 10,000 rounds of 40 caliber ammunition like we saw, during the Obama administration.
Oh yeah. Well, during the Obama administration, I mean, it was every fucking department under the sun. The Department of Education, the Department of Agriculture. I mean, all of them
Yep.
were doing that shit. So
Ryan said something funny to me. We were talking about this, and he's like, "Well, I guess what what all those FEMA coffins are for." And I was like, "Bro, we always knew what those FEMA coffins were for. We're just gonna get to see them get used."
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
because like,
I was talking more about the camps than the coffins. 'Cause
oh
it's not
yeah,
like
the internment camps.
bodies stack up, but the camps are set up for internment. I mean, that's got to be incredibly clear at this point. When you look around, I mean, around the rest of the world, there's been open admissions. Like New Zealand, I know has openly said that they have camps set up for people who refuse to be tested, even.
Yeah.
So if it's happening in other places, it's coming here. Like this is not a like isolated thing, and it's just a matter of time. And we all know that these camps have been being built in the United States for quite a while now. They weren't being built for nothing, and it seems like they have a reason now. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I think they've been. I think people have been posting about them in Canada and Australia as well.
I've seen a lot of Canadians, a lot of my Canadian followers that I follow.
Mhm.
They
Yeah, I
might
believe
be even more concerned than most of our countrymen, or even some of the people in our community that are familiar with this stuff. Um, and I don't know precisely where that's coming from because I admittedly totally stay out of Canadian politics. Sorry, Canadian followers. It just is what it is. Um,
Well, I think Canada has always been a little, a couple steps ahead as far as like progressivism and things go. So I'm not surprised, to be
I
honest.
believe Canada has announced that they are going to have quarantine camps as well officially. So they do
Mhm.
have reason to be concerned there
Yeah.
that the gulags have become a modern thing and are going to start to be filled one way or another. So if I was Canadian, I would be concerned. So
you
stay
know,
strong
it's
out there, Canadian brother.
it's only a matter of time before we're gonna be instructed to show up to our DARPA funded voting booths, at prescribed days and
Mhm.
times. And I mean, who didn't see Skynet coming out of that?
Mhm.
Between them and what Boston Dynamics, like, totally saw all this coming. And
Mhm.
people still deny it to this day, man. Like it's almost like we've got these people that are standing around, they're like, oh, that would never happen because other human beings wouldn't do that to other human beings. And it's just like, okay, did you take world history? Because like, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that you missed out on a lot. But what they don't realize is that in a very short amount of time, it's not going to be badged thug cops enforcing the will of tyrants on
Mhm.
your everyday people. That's going to be automated, definitely.
Yeah, and moving into like a cashless society where you don't have to have a cop to enforce something. You just shut somebody's whole fucking life off,
Yeah,
and
or debit it from their account. As soon as they run the red
yeah,
light, you debit the fine from their account. The evidence is there. They
exactly.
just go ahead and do it. hmm
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
not even that. I mean, I'm talking about enforcement. For nonviolent victimless crime laws. Just little infractions here and there, and you've
Mhm.
got RoboCop showing up to the house, who's programmed in black and white, and
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying. So like there's a whole lot of concerns about what's coming for that because I think that there is a limit to what you can get a human being to do to another human being. And I think that that's a pretty incredible limit. I think that we've seen that obviously people can do some incredibly horrible things, but we've also seen that
Absolutely.
people can do even worse things over a longer period of time if there's some type of disconnect between them and the victim themselves. And it's,
Yeah.
it's similar to what we see with voting and other stuff where people vote to force their will on the other people. But there's going to
I mean,
be a
not to
drastic.
go
No, go ahead, bro.
not to go doom and gloom on it, but I think that you're going to see, even before there's robots showing up, just the public is going to be social crediting. That's what we've been taught through this whole kind of COVID thing, is that we can treat people differently for not consenting to what the government says. And that's really what the
Hmm.
whole mask thing is. And that is creating a disconnect as well. Like you're talking about, between kind of dehumanizing to be able to break that barrier down as to what you're willing to do to your fellow man, because it does make them less of a human to you to not see their facial expressions or anything like that ever again. And then you look at the Stanford prison experiment and you go, oh, if you
That's what I
tell
was.
somebody that they are, at a, yeah, in charge of enforcing these rules, they'll take it to a crazy level to enforce those rules because they think they have authority.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and also, I mean, or it also goes back to where you said because they can't see their face, but then if they do see your face, well, now you're one of those filthy anti-maskers,
Oh yeah.
and you just want everybody's grandma to die. So,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
you're obviously less than the same way as the anti-vaxxers and the anti this and that, conspiracy theorists and far right, whatever other fucking label that they want to throw on you.
Hmm.
I
So,
laugh at all these labels just simply because, I mean, it's always something different. You know what I mean? They find
mhm,
some type of hot word or something to clutch onto, and then they demonize based on that. I know that previously we kind of discussed staying away from labels and specifically
yeah,
talking about principles and values and morals and stuff like that. And
yeah.
I think that that's genuinely helpful to maybe avoid getting some things flagged in the algorithms on social network and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
ultimately, like they know it is what it is. Um, a lot of this data and information, is provided by the phone, by your phone to
Yeah.
whoever has access to it. And I mean, genuinely, like once it leaves your phone, you don't know where it goes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's something that's also kind of discussed in the social dilemma. So again, check it out.
Yeah,
I
for
will
anyone
check that out.
listening, if
Yeah,
you
for
think that
sure.
anything you're doing on your phone it can't be accessed, but grow up. Like, if the government wants to access it, they will.
Oh yeah, they
Whether
got.
it's like usable in court yet or not depends on where they are with the laws and what jurisdiction you're in. But whether they can access it, they can. So don't be stupid.
Absolutely. Don't do anything that you're gonna, yeah, that's gonna be evidence against you. I get people all the time that ask me in comments or in DM, like it matters, like it's really all that private. But they ask me and they're like, "Hey, how do uh, how do you not pay any taxes?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm pretty sure that you can Google that yourself without me incriminating myself on Instagram." Like, you can certainly get around stuff. You just need to get some information. But it's the same thing, like whether it's on posts about firearm modifications and people asking questions suspiciously. Um, all of that stuff, like once the information's out there, man, like it's out there and it's there. So
Yeah.
it's kind of hard. I think that a lot of what we're seeing and some of the propaganda that's coming along with this great reset is that privacy is not a fundamental human right, and that
Mhm.
your medical privacy and pretty much all the personal information about you is and should be public knowledge. And that's kind of what's going on with this too. The type of medical tyranny that's involved is because here we have decades of anti-discrimination legislation in the United States, where you have to make everything fair for people with disabilities or sicknesses or conditions or whatever. And now they're straight up looking at, if you've got these sicknesses or illness or conditions, like you'll be prevented access from places. So, all these years, like they've been legislating so that whatever these people, that people aren't discriminated against. And then they're going to turn around and create a social credit system that specifically does just discriminate. That's all it does.
Hmm.
That's what the social credit system is it discriminates against behavior, people exerting behaviors that aren't preferred by the powers that be. And that's a really dangerous thing,
Hmm.
especially for people that don't have any desire to be controlled. And I think that on the most part, people are awfully ignorant about how much of their information is available online. But furthermore, that's just a drop in the bucket to what, a government agent would be able to access with nothing more than, a fax or an email.
No. Yeah, if you think that they don't know every damn thing about you, like down to what color underwear you're wearing today, you're full of shit.
They definitely know. They definitely know that what color underwear I'm wearing today. Um, but it's
Yeah.
definitely a direction that we see everything heading in, and the incentive is there. If you take a look at the struggle worldwide for resources over time, we've seen all these natural resources have been fought over since industrialization, or even before.
Mm.
Well, some of the stuff that's coming along with the Great Reset and some of the information that's being leaked out there with it is that the next great natural resource to be controlled are human beings.
Yeah.
Think about it. Your HR department at work, they call you a human resource. If you need something, you go to human resources. And that's pretty much how this whole great reset perceives everybody, is to be some type of human resource. There's been even like the Gates Foundation. I know you've probably seen some information that's been put out with them as far as like
Hmm.
how their social credit system would essentially be like an implant in your body that would gauge your behavior and your activity and then punish or reward you accordingly.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the working hard will essentially make it so that you mine crypto, like while you're working or while you're being nice to people, or stuff like that. It's pretty wild.
It's interesting because looking at going back to like Agenda 21 and all of that stuff, what I always foresaw for the future was like the Hunger Games. I remember, now that I say that, I went and saw the first Hunger Games film with, I think it was my mom and my sister, and we walked out, and of course my mom's like, "Well, what did you think?" I'm like, "Oh, it's pretty good. That's pretty much exactly what they want to do." She's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Oh, that's what the government, they want to do that." I mean, this was what, 8 years ago or something like that now. And of course, she thought I was full of shit. But I'm like, no, go, read Agenda 21. This is exactly the type of thing that they want, where you have, the lower class, and then you have the lower class that works and slaves away for the upper class, and it's not like people think of it now with capitalism, but more of a legit like feudalistic kind of society where you're not allowed out into the wilderness that has to be preserved for the upper class, and all of this. And it kind of goes back to the, what is it, the Georgia Guidestones on um, maintaining a proper population,
Limited
in
population,
respect.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and all of that. So, but it reminds me of another video that I saw recently, that you can find on YouTube, called Planned Opolis. Have you guys seen that?
Mm-mm.
It's PLANNED, planned, like Opolis, OPOLIS, and it talks about, basically, this is from 2011, and it just talks about, this centrally planned city, basically, that's all run on AI. And it's just I don't even know I don't know why this video was created, but it's
It
just
sounds like they pretty much stole the concept from Zeitgeist, bro.
yeah, it's very similar to that, but it talks about how you have like a calorie credit, and depending on how many stops you make in your vehicle and things like that, it takes away from your credits, and everybody gets their job pre-planned for them after high school and all of this,
That
and
sounds wonderful. That doesn't sound
yeah,
like
it sounds
that
great.
doesn't sound like 1984 at all, bro.
Yeah. So that's another one that I encourage people to check out. Again, it's called a Plandopolis. There's a couple of different versions uploaded on YouTube that you can watch, but that's kind of just another glimpse into the future. Probably some of the type of shit that we can expect. And I'm wondering, how long can they keep it up with this COVID thing? Do you think that they're gonna just milk this thing dry, or do you think that they will, is there going to be some next big threat that they can use to continue on to a different path, like a different way forward for their
I
control?
mean, it's going to continue on exactly until it's time for, people to be protesting in the streets over something the media wants them to be protesting about.
Hmm.
Because we
Yeah, I think
saw,
it'll,
go ahead.
I mean, I think yeah, you'll see distractions here and there, like you're saying, Jay, where there'll be protests in the streets that are media approved, and the direction of attention will be shifted that way. But I think we're going to continue to see this COVID stuff until we've got vaccines running rampant. Is probably the end game there, because once they
Mm.
can get people to submit to mass vaccinations, that's the skin barrier. I mean, that's the ultimate end game. At that point, you can control people from the inside, like chemically, and not have to worry about consent. Or in a lot of cases, people are going to voluntarily give that consent straight over to the government and their no liability vaccines. So I think we're going to continue to see COVID be a mass pandemic until vaccines are out.
Mass
Not that I
pandemic
think
was in
that
air quotes.
yeah, exactly. I think that's how long it's going to keep on going for. I don't necessarily think that this vaccine that they are cooking up real fast necessarily has like little micro robots that are going to go control your brain in it. But I do think that it's setting the stage for them to be able to inject anybody they want with anything they want from that point forward.
Yeah.
So even if this vaccine is literally just salt water, it's not going to do any good or bad, and is just going to, let them inject everybody.
The
It
precedent.
sets the stage for a
Hmm.
precedent,
Yeah.
exactly, Jay, where they, when they do have something that is going to have the effect that they want to be able to control people, they can and will enforce that vaccination, and we'll see some effects, be they good, bad, or different. But it will take away their need to get consent, and that's not something that I know any of us here are into.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like this past week, I've been kind of doing some digging into some of the things that Ron Paul has been talking about since the late '70s, as far as medical
Mm.
tyranny. And you want to talk about a guy that saw this coming?
Yeah. I think I mean, even right up at the very beginning, he was calling this a hoax from the start.
Oh,
Yeah, and to tie back
if
to
you,
Johns Hopkins
mm-hmm.
that I was talking about earlier, I'm not sure what the best way to find it is at this point. I can provide to you, Doug, a archive of it, but a Johns
Uh,
Hopkins researcher put out a whole article that explains the COVID numbers to be able to be what they actually are, which is not an increase in death overall, no change in deaths across age groups. It's just that, and that if you look at other major causes of death, they didn't stay the same while COVID added on top, like we're kind of being led to believe by the media. It's
right.
just that people died at the same rate they always did. A bunch of the deaths for the other major things like heart disease got tacked into COVID deaths because every other type of major death saw a decrease in the rate that it happened across all age groups at about the same rate as they usually do.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all being told that, and people are believing that a lot of people are dying because they're saying that it's killing off the old people. But newsflash, it was always the old people that died the most. That's always been your
Really?
highest risk for death, was those who are old.
You don't say, bro.
Oh, no.
But overall, they found no spike in death, and that the article really concluded that while they're saying not that the virus is a hoax, but that the numbers are very misleading, was kind of the
Yeah.
final conclusion. That article did not last more than I think about a day up on like Johns Hopkins as a published article, and then it was kind of scrubbed from the net. So like I said, I have an archived link to it from when it was
Okay.
up that I can send to you if you want to like give the listeners a link to it.
Yeah, for sure.
But that just goes to show everybody that if you're waiting for facts and logic to end this COVID like hysteria, it's not happening. That's not something that's going to happen. You're the public around you that's walking around down the sidewalk with a cloth mask over their face is not going to take the time to find this information, and it's not going to be given to them. The information that would make them calm is actively being scrubbed and censored while they're turning on their TV and getting more panic. So until the government wants it to be over, it's not going to be over. And it doesn't look like the government, or whoever we want to say, the powers that be, decides that the pandemic is controlled. It's not going to be controlled. So don't be waiting on science to save us.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with that
Yeah,
wholeheartedly. We're gonna probably see more and more of it. You can even see it now. Headlines today are, huge spike in cases.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, there is also a huge spike in available testing, and it's almost like if a certain percentage of the population have it, when they run more tests, that they're going to have more infected. So they're not talking about what the rate of infection among those tested. They're just talking about it overall. It's going up. They don't tell you that 3 times as many people were tested for this double infection, and then
Yeah.
the numbers don't account for this. And what they never, ever, 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 ever mention is the low mortality rate.
Yeah, it just goes back to what we
not
said
even
earlier.
mentioned anymore.
Yeah, it's
most,
like,
most articles.
Absolutely, because it's negligible at best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just goes back to what we said earlier. I mean, as long as you write a good headline, it does the job for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to have to cut it off here. We're coming up to our limit, so I appreciate you guys coming on once again. Of course, I will be happy to have you guys on again very soon.
Yeah, thanks for having
Any
us.
final words before we get out of here?
Let's do that FTP episode next.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. We've been meaning to
Absolutely.
do that, haven't we?
we definitely need to make that happen for sure, because there's a lot of information that I would love to cover in that myself.
For sure. Excellent. Well, that's going to be next. Then we've got that put on the schedule. Then, or we'll have to put it.
We'll
on the
do
schedule. Well, anyways, I appreciate you guys coming on, and you guys have yourselves a good night.
You too.
You as well.
Take care,
Thanks for
Don.
having us on.
Thanks for tuning in to Break the State podcast. If you want to support this show, you can do so by becoming a contributor for as little as 99 cents per month over at anchor.fm/breakthestate/support. That's anchor.fm/breakthestate/support. I want to give Jay and Ryan a big thank you once again for coming back on the show today. You can find them both over on Instagram at antistate and at _or_else_what, respectively. And you can find all of your Liberty-themed apparel at Jay's website, antistate.net, where my merch will be soon available as well. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, where I try to upload each episode the Friday after its original release date. I will get better about that. And finally, you can find me over on Facebook, so be sure to like and follow there. So that's going to be it for me today, y'all. Until next time, remember, the corporate media is not the arbiter of truth. Peace.